Welcome to Health System CIO's interview with Greg Garneau, Chief Information Security Officer with the Marshfield Clinic Health System. I'm Anthony Guerra, founder and editor-in-chief. Greg, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here today, Anthony. Thank you.
Excellent. Greg, can you tell me a little bit about your organization and your role?
Sure. Thank you for having me again. This is a great opportunity for me to talk a little bit about what we do here. So the Marshfield Clinic Health System is a integrated health delivery organization located in central Wisconsin. We've been around for over 100 years. We were founded in 1916 as a clinic, very much like Mayo or Cleveland Clinic.
Hmm.
We've now since gone into the acute and ambulatory as well. So we have around 60 clinics in central Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We have 11 hospitals. We have a research institute, a health insurance plan, all of which fall under my purview as CISO.
Aren't you lucky, right?
Keeps me hopping every day.
Very good.
But yeah,
Excellent.
we're dedicated to rural healthcare and serving underserved populations. So it's a really great mission that we have here.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Can you tell me about how you came to be where you are career-wise? What was the evolution of Greg Garneau winding up as a healthcare IT security expert?
Well, it's like most folks, you start out in IT at some point. I've been in IT since the mid 90s, starting, really early on, turning wrenches, building computers, managing, endpoints, that type of thing. Then moved into, all types of engineering architecture, and then got into network security in the early 2000s, and then really got into cybersecurity and managing cybersecurity. It's almost 15 years now. So
Hmm.
transitioned to working in the Marshfield Clinic Health System in 2015, and took on the CISO role in 2016.
So you started out sort of going down engineering architecture. I mean, is it a proper way to think of this kind of work as you might either be on the back end, so to speak, the infrastructure and architecture side, or you might be working on the user-facing application side? Is that kind of two paths that people can select from, and you chose sort of the back end path at that
Yeah,
point?
I think at the time that's really what my focus was. I wanted to be more on the engineering side of the house, right, and
Hmm.
the systems side of the house. We see a lot of that. A lot of the folks on my team started out in that as well. But there's been, I think, in my opinion, a shift, given the lack of talented cyber folks. You're not looking necessarily for systems engineering background or an applications background. One of the things that we look for these days when we're looking for staff is someone who has I call it the attitude and the acumen, right? If you have the ability to learn, the curiosity, the desire to do this work, and the understanding of the concepts, we can turn anyone into a cybersecurity professional or warrior, as I like to say.
I've heard that from other folks, from other CISOs, and it sounds like what's going on is the lack of workforce availability for the specific talents you're looking for. The messaging from CISOs out there is intended to stop scaring people away who may have been scared away because they didn't have the certifications and didn't have the background. And CISOs are saying, hey, we need you. We'll help you out if you have these things. And I've heard that also, that curiosity. You have to be sort of a problem solver, a curious person, want to learn, and
Right.
and then I'll take you in and we can work with you. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And one of the things that we also focus on here is, I call it building our bench. So we start in the colleges and universities in our internship program and recruiting folks there. In fact, we've had a very successful relationship with University of Wisconsin Stout, which is the state's only polytechnic university, and all of our IT, um, from development and infrastructure and cybersecurity, they have a very good cybersecurity program there. So we're also looking for talent there. it's one of the things that I think we all struggle with in this role is the ability to find talented people who we can bring in and help us with our cyber defense and our mission.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, and let's see if we can give any advice to CISOs out there who are intrigued by this internship concept. Is there any a couple questions? Is there any advice you can give there to how to move that forward? Any key people that the CISO would want to work with internally in the health system to get that moving? And any other sort of advice for a CISO who says, I want to avail myself of something like this.
So one of the things that we have done, and we've done it for a very long time here at the Marshfield Clinic, is um, we understand the value of finding folks who live in the state of Wisconsin who want to come work here. Now, the interesting thing, pre-COVID, we had an even harder sell, right? Moving to central Wisconsin, for a lot of folks coming straight out of college. That's not the desired state. They all want to go to the big city and do all sorts of fun things. But we use best of breed tech, and that's another draw for these folks. Leadership has signed off. You need your leadership to really understand the need, right? And understand the need and understand your program and your message that, we're going to continue to need to find talented folks. So we have to reach out in places we've really typically not done before. And starting in colleges and universities, and getting folks introduced to the Marshfield Clinic and our mission, I think has been very helpful. So you need to have contacts with your local universities. You need to understand what they're teaching as well, right? So where are the programs in your state and the universities that align with what you're trying to accomplish? So, computer science, if they have cybersecurity programs, I mean, that's always great too. Again, that the ability to get people early and start them in your program. So we typically bring juniors in. So we have 2 summers with them if they're really good. So then by the time they graduate, they'll have a really great understanding of our program. And if they wish to come to work for us, that's great. And we've already got trained students who now become trained professionals, or real professionals in our field.
So is step one for the CISO to go to HR and have a conversation with HR and say, listen, I'm having a little trouble finding the talent I need. I know this is a route other people are going. What do you think about this? How can we move this forward? Sort of partner up with HR. I mean, you're not out there yourself calling colleges, right? I assume there's some
No,
sort of partnership with HR.
sure, there is, right. So HR is definitely involved, and they have a whole team of people who go out to colleges and universities for job fairs, right? Not just for IT, but nursing and a lot of the other skilled trades that they have. So partner with HR, ensure that you've got great buy-in from your own leadership. That's the first step. Then partner with HR, and then start talking to, once HR identifies universities that might be of value, then start reaching out to the deans and the program directors at the different universities.
And are you doing much of the direct outreach there, or is that kind of you're giving HR what they need and you're not really
No,
hands in the pie there, or are you?
no, I think it's important that you know who these folks are.
Hmm.
That at the universities, you have to have a relationship with them.
Hmm.
I think it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Not only can they help steer students to you, you as a cybersecurity leader can also go to those universities and speak and
Okay.
encourage students to get into the field and excite them about the opportunities that we have. And a lot of the students, they're all about, hey, I want to do red team, blue team. I want to be a pen tester. I want to do all these
Hmm.
really cool and exciting things. But you can also then, in talking to them, let them know that there's a whole host of other exciting cybersecurity careers that you can have that actually serves a purpose and a benefit, a greater benefit, like medical device security, those
Right.
types of things.
Okay. I just want to make sure the listeners understand that they can't just make one call to HR and walk away. This is something you need to manage, get involved in, and sort of
Yeah.
put your arms around. Um, I've seen quite a few CISOs now. Uh, posting jobs on LinkedIn from their own personal profiles. So that seems to be a trend where, um, and again, the sentiment you touched on was expressed to me previously, which is I know this stuff better than HR. I know what I'm looking for. I know what kind of profiles I want to see. So yeah, there's still the HR partnering, but they like going direct on their profile, putting it up on LinkedIn. If you have a pretty good network, that thing's going to get sort of reshared over and over. So you really could get quite some significant exposure. Um, and again, this individual is saying, yeah, I'm willing to be contacted directly, even initially. So there's a huge increased willingness to sort of get down in the weeds, so to speak, and do this work because I think it is so important. I mean, it's your people are all you have, so you need to put the work in there. That's a good place to put in work, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Um, you know, people talk a lot these days about we have to work differently, right? And we have to start thinking outside the box. Well, there is no box. You just have to start thinking in ways you've never thought before because the need is so great to find staff and to bring people into your organization who can help you, you know, do your work, do the work that's so vital in ultimately protecting our patients and our system. So, you know, whatever means that we can to get the word out, to get the message out, that hey, we're looking for staff, we're looking for people to come and join our team. It doesn't need you just don't have to start with HR isn't your funnel, right?
Hmm.
You can do lots of different things. Ultimately, you may have to go through HR, but if people are reaching out to you individually, then you can just direct them straight to this to your, company's website, start filling out forms, and then the process kicks off.
Right, right. When we're talking about the people shortage, the workforce shortage, there's tons of tools out there, right? A million tools. One of the sentiments I've heard expressed from CISOs is I don't need another tool that gives me information that I don't have sort of the resources to follow up on, right? I don't want alert after alert. Yeah, your tool is going to give me great alerts. I don't have the time. I don't have the people to follow up on everything.
Right.
Enter more managed services.
Mhm.
So, I want the complete package. I don't want the tool because I may not have the people to deal with it. But if you're talking about a tool with managed services wrapped around it, where you're sort of doing the follow-up work, that's more interesting now. Is that true that that's something that's going on?
I believe it is true. I certainly do. I know of others who have gone the managed services route. We have not. Um, we still um, we still are doing a lot of that work ourselves. But I think there's a space for it. I think there's a spot for it in organizations. Um, the issue becomes one of cost, right? Cost is always a factor these days in determining what solutions, um, or what service provider, managed service you're going to go with. I think one of the things that we have done looking for tools that we'll bring into our organization, it's not just, hey, give me another bright, shiny box as you point out, that's going to do all sorts of things that I really can't action on or
Hmm.
operationalize.
Right.
So we look at solutions that um, bring in more automation, the less need for people to touch keyboards on it, right? It'll funnel, really important data to us, not just, alert death by alert, right? So we
Hmm.
don't want all of that white noise. I call them force multipliers, right? You bring in solutions that will act as a force multiplier for your staff. It doesn't require you to go out and get extra FTE just to manage that solution or some other things.
Right.
So we've been doing a lot of that, uh, looking for efficiencies in solutions that we bring in that will give us efficiencies that we can focus staff effort on more important operational or other security program initiatives as opposed to just jumping at alert after alert
Hmm.
after.
Right. When we talk about managed services, the way you expressed it was almost it sounded like an all or nothing type thing. Is that what you meant to say, or can you do small pieces of your operation and say, all right, this piece we're going to sort of outsource, but we're going to keep the other stuff?
Oh, sure. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can certainly, it's not an all or nothing proposition for sure. And there are times, in fact, we've been looking at solutions recently that um, would make sense for us to partner with to help our organization. So I certainly believe there is, um, opportunities across the board from complete managed service end to end to just as you mentioned, just a portion of what it is that you're doing for your business.
I'm going to ask sort of an open-ended question. See where you take it. What are one or two of the most important trends that you are looking at, that you are trying to position your organization to be ready to handle? Um, so I guess that's the question there. What are you looking at? And so,
So,
yeah,
and
go ahead.
yeah, so, I don't know of any CISO who I speak to on a regular basis who isn't concerned about business continuity, right? And ensuring that, uh, the dreaded ransomware that is out there, and what that impact will be on your organization, right? What is the impact to your organization? What are your plans? What is your time to restore? All of those things. I know as an organization, we have spent a significant amount of time and effort ensuring that business continuity, downtime, all of the things that people talk about, backups, restoring, um, planning, all of the things that um, people talk to us about in terms of good practice, we have been looking at on that side of the house. And we've also spent a significant amount of time looking at medical device security and ensuring that that ecosystem um, is as safe as we can possibly make it. It's the days of these non-connected devices are way over, right? They've been over for years. So it's
Hmm.
now interconnected medical devices where each node is a potential threat, right? So anything connected to your network on the medical device side could be a problem. So we've brought in tools that will help us manage that risk, identify devices that are vulnerable, and then we work to remediate. So those are two very big issues that we've been dealing with. Now, obviously throw a third one in there, and I'm going to go back to is staffing.
Mm.
There's a real talent war out there. Um, Cybersecurity folks are being offered significant salaries to jump from place to place. So talent retention and talent acquisition is in the top 5 of my risk areas.
Well, let's talk a little bit before we go into the other two a little more. Let's talk a little bit about talent retention. I mean, money's money, but let's take that off the table. You're going to pay people as well as you can. You're going to do what you can do. Beyond that, do you have any particular strategies you might recommend to other folks for how to keep your people happy?
So one of the things that we do as an organization, we obviously have folks who are specialized in certain aspects of our cybersecurity practice, but we also have um, times where we set aside for learning on different aspects. That something that you don't necessarily do on your day-to-day basis, but we have members of the team talk about it and encourage others to get more involved. I think one of the things that we run into is some of the junior level members of the team. We need to mentor them. We need to encourage them to stay excited, and we need to give them more responsibility. So I do that as well. So you give them projects to complete that are not just throwaway projects. These are real and serious projects. So it's encouraging folks to learn more. It's that curiosity factor I was talking about earlier,
Hmm.
and also finding out what we've been doing these things with talent profiles. What is it that you want to do with your career?
Right.
And then you start aligning their desires to their career, and it's one of those things that keep folks excited about the work, um, and ultimately you're going to get them to stay longer because they really enjoy what they do. And as you point out, the money part is the money part, but that's that's not the whole that's not the whole motivating factor, the driving factor for most folks. And we
And
also want to have a good working environment. You want to have a very collegial, um, collaborative, team-focused, team-centered environment.
So a couple things there. I think is very, the talent profiles you mentioned, finding out what they want to do is definitely the way to go because it's not a one size fits all, right? I mean, you want to go this way, you want to go that, you want to move up, you don't want to move up, right? You want to deal with customers, you don't want to deal with customers. You want you want to stay down there and just bang away on you. Okay, right?
Right.
I want to make you happy. I mean, we don't want to get fixated on, oh, we got to get people out of their comfort zone. Everybody needs to get out of their comfort zone. Well, that's not a recipe for making everybody happy, right?
Right.
So I
Oh
mean, you
yeah.
have to go with what people want to do.
So sometimes, we've had folks who just, hood up, hands on keyboard, leave me alone. I'm going to do
Oh,
great things.
I'm
And,
happy.
and you want to throw them in front of a group to speak, and that doesn't work, right? We
Yeah.
just know that.
And then they resign, and you say, "Well, what's wrong with my talent retention program?
What just happened here?
What just happened here?"
Yeah.
That's great. Um, and so you talk about it being a collegial environment. Everything isn't always roses. And one of the biggest things you learn about if you study leadership management, one of the biggest problems is a leader who doesn't remove a problem, right? You let someone who's not sort of good for the team remain. So if you want a collegial environment, you do your best to bring in those kind of folks. But if you have an issue, it has to be dealt with. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think that the thing, you're not walking in every day expecting rainbows and butterflies, right? I mean, first of all, it's just not what we do. Um,
No.
it's a fast-paced world, constant change, constant threats. People are, we're driving hard. But when you build a cohesive team, right? It's those small unit cohesion kind of tactics that you need to bring into play. If there's a problem, you've got to deal with it quickly. So a problem's identified, action taken, the team understands, that we're back to a good state. So
Hmm.
you have to address those. And what's really good about the work that we do and the folks that we have, I'm not the one who has to. I don't identify and have to deal with it sometimes. The team, the leaders
Mm.
on the team, will say, "Hey, we've got a problem," and I'll find out about it, and they've dealt with it in a way that makes perfect sense. But I like the ability. I kind of live by the ability to allowing people to make decisions, right? So distributed leadership kind of theory, where we empower the team to make decisions. So also as it comes, as it relates to how the team interacts with one another, we let the team leads often take the lead on helping to remediate. Obviously, if it becomes a much greater problem, I'll jump in and have in the past.
I would say, and I'm guessing you're going to agree with this. I would say one of the biggest satisfactions you would get as a leader is when you find out after the fact that a problem had occurred and it had been resolved in a good way without your involvement at all. Is that not one of the greatest feelings at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's, positive outcomes without my involvement.
Right.
It makes you proud more than anything,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it's reaffirming that the folks that you brought on board are the ones, the reason you brought them on board, you were, validated that they were
Right.
great folks, and you could count on.
And I'm thinking that that is perhaps messaging that leaders should get out there to their teams. Like, hey, this is great if this happens. You don't have to tell me everything. I don't need to know everything. Like maybe after the fact when I mentioned something happened, but if it's handled without me, that's super. That's even better. Like they need to know that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, you have to have that culture of, kind of decentralized leadership where you empower your folks on the team to make decisions,
Right.
right? And even if it's a wrong decision, that's okay. I'll be told about it, of course, and I'll have to come in and we'll have to resolve it. But that the ability to empower folks to make the decisions, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to be the right decisions because um, they, who you brought on board. So yeah, no, those are the messages that's important that people realize. You can't take on all of this yourself,
No.
right? It's just not possible. There's not enough time in the day and not enough bourbon in the bottle uh, for you to be able to do that. So
That's great. And as you mentioned, if they do make a mistake, I think one of the more delicate parts of leadership is addressing that without making them gun shy, so to speak, that they don't want to make a decision again, right? It's like, okay, I do have to address that I don't think this was handled perfectly, but I need to address it in a way that you don't not want to make a decision again.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
you can't come in, heavy-handed. You have to encourage them to own the mistake and fix the mistake, right? And those are coachable moments as a
Right.
leader,
Right.
right? And that's what you want to be able to do, coach, not berate.
Right. Right. Um, let's talk a little bit more about the business continuity planning. One of the issues that I've really just drilled down on in my mind as an interesting area, almost a gray area, is the CISO's role in interacting with clinical leaders to work through a scenario by which the organization or during which the organization has to go to paper. So how does that get worked through, thought through, game planned so that you explain to them, here's a scenario that could happen. We have a
Mhm.
ransomware attack. Here's how it could go down. Here's some of the messaging that could happen. Things pop up on screens. It gets to IT. It winds up on my desk. We make a decision that we need to go offline. I'm going to call you. I'm going to message you. I need all your information. Here's what the message is going to say. You're going to be given possibly an hour warning or less, or maybe, and you need to think about what you're going to do at that point. Like, what is your role in making sure that's been thought through on the other end so that you don't do your part and they go, what? And they're not ready. So, what are your thoughts there?
So the first thing I would say is this is not just an IT thing, right? First and foremost, um, we have obviously a very, very vital role in this from an IT and a CISO perspective. But the business, the leaders of the business, the clinical care leaders, they have to be engaged. And we're doing that now, where we engage all of the leaders and we have tabletop exercises with leadership across the entire system. We're having at each location. We have tabletop exercises about what exactly happens when boom happens,
Mm-hmm.
when boom occurs, what is your job, right? And we talk to them about what could happen, the loss of all technology and you're back to paper, right? Stone Age kind of stuff. And we've learned from a number of different events over the course of the last 2.5 years that it's so important to get out in front of this early, left of boom, as they say, and make sure that when this happens, people know what their downtime procedures are because patient care is impacted, right? This is about patient safety. All of this really is. And the leaders need to understand where that folder is, the binder is that has the procedures. Everybody in every department needs to understand what that is. It's a cultural shift that has to occur in an organization. It's not just, oh, yeah, IT will fix it. It'll be back up in a couple hours. I think we all know ransomware events are, they're significantly more existential.
Mm-hmm.
So it's partnership with the clinical side of the house. It's partnership with our emergency management folks, right? So we have a whole group of people involved in these, in the planning and the exercising, that isn't just IT, right? It's using what we learned from COVID in terms of having emergency management or our different committees that get turned up in the event of emergencies, right? So we're kind of using some of the things that we learned there for the ransomware events and the planning. So it's not just an IT issue. It's not just a CISO looks at it, but it's everybody in the health system from the CEO on down needs to understand what these events actually are, where you're actually back to paper charting. How do you read an X-ray? Or how do you move images? Well, you don't, right? It's all of those
Yeah.
things, and the people in radiology need to understand that. So it's a really interesting dynamic. In some of our first exercises, the looks of shock and fear on the faces of the others, it was definitely eye-opening for them.
Who is convening the exercises? Who's my concern? My concern for health systems is that it's not an IT problem. It's not a clinical problem. It's a bigger picture organizational problem, but I would suspect a lot of CEOs are not thinking about this. Maybe the emergency management uh, organization department, maybe they're the ones that need to sort of understand, but I don't even know if they understand real cyber outages, and because they're probably thinking more hurricane, tornado,
Right.
that kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
So what
absolutely.
I'm just afraid that it could be falling through the cracks in some places.
Well, and you're absolutely right. It's not something that people think about, right?
Hmm.
Especially think about it in small rural systems, right? The kind of systems that we are around. They don't have the staff. They don't have necessarily the training to do this, or they're worried more about operational issues. And then all of a sudden you get hit with the ransomware event and you're done.
Hmm.
um, we have taken the approach that it is a collaborative effort. So it's the CTO, it's the CIO, it's the CEO, and the entire C-suite on the health system side who has made this a priority, right? So you've got to start there and making it a priority, and then you're able to bring in all the various groups to have these exercises and surface this information to them. But it's a struggle. We're lucky in our organization that we've got complete buy-in. But to your point, there are lots of other organizations where people may not be taking this as seriously as they should, or have the capacity to do it.
Right. All right, Greg, listen, we're just about out of time. I just want to give you an opportunity for a final thought, final piece of advice. The way I frame it up is picture someone in your position at a comparable sized health system. What would your best piece of advice be for them in terms of, this is something you found to work, an approach, a way to look at things, or something that you would suggest they pursue?
Well, I think one of the things that we talk a lot about, and we spent a good time talking about it today, are the people that work with you. Your staff is the most valuable asset that you have. And it's important for you to continue to nurture good relations with them, uh, opportunities for them to grow, as well as bringing in new talent. Um, the threats that we face are not going away anytime soon. So you need a dedicated, quality group of people to assist you with your mission. So I would recommend reaching out to places you've never done before. Go to the universities,
Hmm.
go to the tech schools, and start building those relationships so you're not caught without having the staff you need to support your mission and protect your patients.
Wonderful, Greg. Thanks so much for your time today. It was a wonderful interview. I appreciate it.
Great visiting with you today, Anthony. Thank you.